This is a little breathalyzer unit that's sold on Amazon currently for about the $25 range. And I took this out and tested it last night, and yeah, it was pretty cool actually. We had a big kick out of trying it out and seeing how high we could get the reading to go. I don't know if that's the intended use of it by the manufacturer, but that's the use that seemed to happen for us. Some things to note with it. I'm going to first demonstrate it for you, although I haven't had anything to drink today. So first, first things first is load 3 AAA batteries in the back. I do notice that the back cover, for me, was pretty loose, and I kept accidentally pulling it off last night. So I think I might have to put a little tape there. Otherwise, I could easily see me losing the back cover. But anyway, so the first thing you do is you put on a little guard, which I guess it would operate the same without it. That's just for sanitary purposes, I guess. And then you press a button, oops, like that, and it will beep. Then it counts down from 100. And then what you're supposed to do is taking like deep breaths. And then once it comes to 0, you blow, and then it will give you your reading. And if your reading is high, it will make a tone. And if your reading is not, it won't. So here, I'll blow and show you what it's like. Okay, so I blew a 0.00. And that's about how long it takes. It doesn't take too long at all. If you have anything that's higher than 0.05, I think it is, you'll get the car symbol, but there'll be like a striker through it, and then, as I said, an alarm will sound. Something that I initially was doing wrong was I was misinterpreting the test results because I had it on a different mode than percent blood alcohol. Here in the United States, alcohol is typically measured in percent BAC, which is this first one right here. So we're familiar with the legal limit, which is 0.08. But there's also there's 4 modes altogether. So some of the time we had it on percent BAC per 1,000, which is the same reading. It's just not in a form that's familiar to us. So we would be blowing things like 0.31, which would mean incredibly inebriated, going by this standard, if that makes sense. And then there's also a milligram per liter and a milligram per 100 milliliter. So these two readings I'm not familiar with at all. We don't use them in the United States, but maybe these are readings that are used by people in other countries. I'm not aware. But it is important to note that after you take the test and you get your reading, if you hit this button multiple times, it'll scroll through the different modes and just find the one that is for the region that you are. So once we figure that out, we always left it on this, and then the next time you take the test, it'll read out in that one. So you don't have to constantly be resetting it, if that makes sense. Something else to note, to get the most accurate readings, you should not only take deep breaths before you do it, but you should also wait 10 minutes before your last drink. We didn't always do this. Sometimes we just, would take a drink and go. But I think the readings were actually fairly consistent even doing that, because they rose throughout the night, and then about 1 or 2 a.m., whenever it was that we left the bar, they were peaked out at about 0.08, 0.07, somewhere in there. And then they slowly fell throughout the night. So for instance, I peaked at 0.08, and then several hours later at 3 a.m. I was back down to 0.05. I think it's interesting to note that .05 for me while I was starting to drink and before I was .08 felt a lot less drunk than .05 after I had been drinking and was coming down. You would kind of think that it would feel the same both coming and going, but it really doesn't. So that was kind of an interesting, it was just an interesting thing to learn for me anyway. I felt a lot more drunk at .05 at 3 a.m. in the morning than I did at .05 at, 10 o'clock at night. So, anyway, this is kind of a useful little gizmo if you just want a quick measurement of where you are. I would in no means assume that this is as sensitive or as good as a regular police officer's unit, but it can still give you kind of a gauge of where you are. But it's a fun item, and it's one that I'll probably keep around and bring out when we're hanging out with groups of friends.